I'm your favorite magic channel's favorite magic channel. Best believe that the professor go bananas for my deck text. I come correct like a porn star, slicing up all these other suckers with my sword Mars.
What's up, my wizards? Deb from MTG, the place down there with the decks. We've got a few decks for you today, but they're all the same kind of deck. It's weird. We're doing something different today, is all I'm saying. Today, I'm going to bring you the first video in something I hope to be a series a little bit later on here. This is how to build, you know. Instead of just giving you a deck, I'm going to sort of give you the tools, you know. You teach a man to fish, that old philosophy, and sort of tell you how malleable that strategy is, sort of the core philosophy of the deck, what, you know, sort of important cards that it plays, and then the different ways you can tweak and tool around with it. So, hope you guys like this. I've been working on it for a while because right now, there's so many different ways to build this deck right now. And what are we working on? Well, something that's really generating a lot of buzz right now, the Aristocrats. What is Aristocrats? Well, it's a deck that's been around for a few years now, ever since Cartel Aristocrat and Falcon Wrath Aristocrat were in the format together, you know. We had Blood Artists back in those days. It was a really fun and really important deck. Some recursion elements because we're sacrificing creatures, you know, and whenever we sacrifice creatures, we do stuff. You know, we can swing in with Cartel Aristocrat or make sure that she avoids any removal. With Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, we're able to make sure that she survived almost damn near anything. So that's sort of the original core concept of the deck. Let's sacrifice dudes and make our other guys better. Then we can have recursion aspects to bring our guys back. So, how do we update that for the current format? Well, we got a Blood Artist of our very own in Battle for Zendikar, Zulaport Cutthroat. He is sort of the card for the deck. Now, the two core cards, sort of the shell of the deck, it's definitely going to be Zulaport Cutthroat and Mtgo Husk. The whole deck, more or less, works off of the interaction between these two cards. You know, whenever you sacrifice a guy to Mtgo Husk, not only does it get bigger, we get incremental advantage in the form of drain, you know. Awesome thing, and traditionally, historically, has been abusable, and there's absolutely no difference this time around. Another card we're working around is Hangerback Walker. Hangerback Walker, he's in 90% of Aristocrats decks. He's not an auto include, but he might as well be. Obviously, the synergy between this and Mtgo Husk is fantastic, and if you're sacrificing all the flyers that you get, just Zulaport Cutthroat starts to get pretty insane pretty quick, and Hangerback is already an established card. We know to play this in the shell. Our secondary in this deck, we've got sort of two tiers to our secondary. These are cards that sacrifice well and are very utility, and we can play them early on in the mana curve. We've got a few of those that are important for the deck. And we've also got some other cards that really push the deck. You know, just insane synergy with what the deck does, and we almost certainly have to play them. So on that first string, sort of the things that we can play in the 1 and 2 drop slot that really help us get going and sacrifice very well a little bit in the mid game, you know, are going to be Sultai Emissary, Carrier Thrall, and Blister Pod in decks that want to play green, which is definitely the easiest color to add to the deck. You know, you add green, you get more than one really good option. Blister Pod is a great one-drop in just the black-green shell, you know. The card is very flexible, and the other two are the exact same way. We need 2 drops in the deck. We can play Den Protector in that green shell. That helps get things back from the graveyard after we sacrifice them, get a little extra mileage out of them. That's really important too. But Sultai Emissary and Carrier Thrall are sort of the two that you'll see very often, especially Emissary. He appears to be particularly strong, although for my taste I like Carrier Thrall a little bit more. I like getting a creature that you can just choose to sacrifice even if you don't have a husk. That's always nice. Now, the things that help the deck along, you know, they're not necessarily things that sacrifice well, but the things that help the deck along are Catacomb Sifter, Liliana, Heretical Healer, and the other one, and then Bloodsoaked Champion I'll put in this category too, you know. Bloodsoaked Champion, one of the other really good one-drops that a deck like this can play, you know. Worth noting, by the way, that you can, you know, use that ability as many times as you have mana for as long as you've attacked, you know. You can attack and then bring him back into play during your second main phase, sacrifice him. If you still got 2 mana, bring him back into play again, sacrifice him, you know. So he's really good at sort of inevitability, you know. Very exploitable he is. Sifter is super obvious. You add green to the deck, you're almost certainly playing Catacomb Sifter. Just scrying 1 is better than you might think. That's insane. Really setting up your next draw almost no matter what. And Grim Haruspex, for that matter, I'll go ahead and put her on this list too. You know, I'm tempted to put Grim Haruspex in the 3rd string, but her ability is just so ridiculously bomb for a deck like this, and really helps fuel, sacrificing a creature might just draw us another creature that we can drop, sacrifice, draw, so things get out of hand really quick with Sifter and Grim Horror Specs out especially, fix your draw and then draw it, you stack the triggers that way. So both these cards work really, really well on this end of the curve. And then Liliana, man. A lot of Aristocrats decks will play a full play set of Liliana, because it doesn't matter if you sack Liliana, she comes into play. And very often, another thing about this, very often you'll flip her and immediately kill her with her neg X ability, So she'll go to the graveyard and feel free to play another one, whatever. So, there's plenty of things you can do with your Liliana. You can send her to the graveyard really easy and play another one pretty easy too. So just, 4 full copies of Liliana in a lot of these decks, and I can't blame anybody for that. In our third string, still talking black here, we're going to play Bone Splinters and Merciless Executioner in a lot of these decks, Maybe a 1 or 2 of Executioner, and I've seen some decks play a full 4 of Bone Splinters. And it's another sacrifice outlet, It's always good to have parity with, Nantuko Husk, if that's the only sacrifice outlet you've got. Some of these decks will also play Vampiric Rites, but usually just as a 1 of. I've seen that a couple of times, but mostly you're relying on Nantuko Husk. But if you're going to sacrifice a dude anyway, and you don't care about sacrificing him, Bone Splinters is very, very good. It's basically like Murderous Cut, and in this deck has an upside in some cases. So yeah, Bone Splinters is pretty freaking amazing. Also in this third string here is Rot Shambler. You do not see this very often, The deck has enough 2-drops to play. Again, Carrier Thrall and Sultai Emissary are premium 2-drops. And if the deck adds a color like green, you usually play Den Protector over Rot Shambler. Again, I like Rot Shambler, but if we're playing so many 2-drops, we can't fill out the curve with them because we have to play a lot of 3-drops too. If we're playing Nantuko Husk, Liliana, and all Grim Horror Spec, Catacomb Scepter. So we really have to make sure that we're playing the most efficient cards at all 3 mana costs early game. 2 cards I want to talk about here that go in some builds of the deck. This is no longer the third string. This is just sort of cards that some people play in some Aristocrats builds that may make them entirely different decks, In this case, Collected Company and Rally the Ancestors are 2 cards I want to talk about. Collected Company, people are deciding that it's not as important as they once thought it was in this deck. Still a very important card. But you used to see 4 ofs at the beginning of this format. Now you see 2 and 3 ofs of Collected Company in a lot of these decks, Still a very important card, but we really don't want to hit Hangerback Walker off of it. That's a prime concern. But still an important card, can still do some cool things at instant speed for you. And same thing with Rally the Ancestors, man, although I think this is even more important in a lot of ways, depending on what build we're utilizing. But Rally the Ancestors can bring all your dudes back into play at one time, and in a lot of cases, like, you'll bring 2 Zulaport Cutthroats back from the graveyard, a Nantuko Husk, and a couple of other small creatures, and then you can just win. You can just, deal 12 damage all at one time if you do it right, and it's not hard to do right, to be honest with you. A deck that people are talking about is blue-black, Dimir, Aristocrats, Sometimes it plays a white card, so it's called Aristocrats, which is a dumb name, but Espercrats, I'll call it that. We'll often play, but not always, Sidisi's Faithful, an obviously good card for a deck like this. We'll often play a Jutai's Command. That's the only thing that makes it Esper, honestly. And we'll almost always play Whirler Rogue in this deck as well. These are sort of the 3 blue cards that make blue-black Exploit, or blue-black Aristocrats, an actual thing. So many options with a card like Whirler Rogue. That's really good. And same thing with a Jutai's Command. Puts us back in the game in some situations. We'll almost always get an important creature back, usually Zulaport Cutthroat, but not always. We just get a utility thing back. That works too. There's also a case for Elvish Aristocrats deck. It plays, Rally the Ancestors. It's sort of an Abzan Rally deck that plays Elves, Plays Rally the Ancestors, plays Shaman of the Pack, and then a few key Elves at the bottom. Usually Elvish Visionary is an important card for the deck, and very often Leaf Gilder to help us get up to that mana cost we need to for Rally quicker, But we'll also play Zulaport Cutthroat in the deck, and then Nantuko Husk. So, it's really cool when we can just, play a couple of Elves early in the game, and then Shaman of the Pack, and then we'll play Zulaport Cutthroat and Nantuko Husk on the 5th turn, and get a bunch of damage in the next turn, usually 5th or 6th turn, if we've got, Leaf Gilder out to help us pump mana. 5th or 6th turn, we'll play Rally, and put all those dudes back into play. Shaman of the Pack does damage, we can sacrifice him to, the Husk again, get damage off of Zulaport Cutthroat, So just the deck does a lot of damage on key turns, and it is really, really an interesting deck. I like Elvish Aristocrats a lot. There's also the Ally Aristocrats deck, which can also be Abzan, but is usually Mardu. Mardu Aristocrats is fine because we get to play an important card in Butcher of the Horde. Butcher of the Horde is just great for this deck. We still want to play Nantuko Husk, obviously, but usually we cut back a copy or two of Husk so that we can play a copy or two, or a copy or two of Butcher of the Horde. Just, if we're already sacrificing creatures, we might as well get the maximum effect for it, and Butcher of the Horde is freaking nuts for this deck, you know. But aside from that, let's actually talk about the allies. We get to play Calastria Healer in the allies Mardu deck, and the Calastria Healer combos with Zulaport Cutthroat very well. You know, get the damage coming in and going out. That's really, really good. And when we can rally in a bunch of Calastria Healers all at once with a bunch of other creatures, you know, then things get silly quick. You know, if you can just rally in 2 Calastria Healers and 2 or 3 other creatures, you deal a bunch of damage right there. Mardu allies is no joke, and you could play March from the Tomb in the deck, although for now I think I like Rally a little bit better. Well, that's sort of the base of what Aristocrats can do. You know, I've given you the shell, I've given you a lot of the important cards in a bunch of different colors that we can play. So, here's a couple of decks. First of all, here's mono black Aristocrats as I see it right now. Now the shell is already heavily mono black, so we might as well play mono black, and I know that it's not an incredibly budget deck between Liliana and Hangerback Walker, but still not as expensive as a lot of decks we can play. Now obviously I haven't included a sideboard or lands here. That's, you know, in the interest of time for the most part. This deck I've played a few games with, and it functions very, very well because it's just got all the key things that we need for the deck, you know. This is fine right here. On the opposite end of the spectrum, this is Rainbow Aristocrats, 5-color Aristocrats. In this deck, we get a chance to play Butcher of the Horde and Nantuko Husk together. That's always good. We could just do that in Mardu Aristocrats, but we also get to play a Jutai's Command in this deck, which you've already established is really good. Now, I'm not including Jace in this build, although I could see Jace in the deck. You know, we've got Rally the Ancestors, Collected Company, a Jutai's Command, Bone Splinters, all things that we'd like to play out of our graveyard, and it'd be nice in the early game to be able to draw some cards, you know, and put stuff in our graveyard so that we can rally it back in later. Those are all good ideas, but I haven't included Jason in this build. I've opted for Den Protector instead, and maybe a couple Sidisi's Faithful and Blister Pod at the very low end, because we still need low-end creatures, you know. It looks underwhelming to have those 2 guys there at the bottom end, but if we don't have anything that's worthy of sacrificing, the deck falls flat. You know, if you got a bunch of dudes out that you don't want to get rid of, then you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, so you need small creatures, and instead of Blister Pod or Sidisi's Faithful, I can see playing maybe Sultai Emissary in this slot, although we've got a lot of creatures that we want to come into play as themselves, you know. We want their into the battlefield abilities, so Sultai Emissary isn't great in that position, but Carrier Thrall could still work, you know, but we need some utility creatures like that at the low end of the spectrum. But in this build, don't take it super seriously unless you want to shuffle it up and let me know how you feel about it, but this is mostly just to show you how many options the deck actually has. That's all I've got for now. That's a lot of stuff to talk about, though. You know, you can play Mono Black Aristocrats, Golgari Green Black Aristocrats, Blue Black Aristocrats, Mardu Aristocrats, Rainbow Aristocrats, Esper Aristocrats, and that's it. Again, hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, please help us out. Like, share, comment, subscribe. We're less than 100 subscribers away from 10,000 subscribers. I'm Deb from SBMTG. As always, thanks for watching, boys.